So lately I've been dealing with a really cluttered environment, and as someone who grew up being kind of messy and then slowly has been shifting into a more orderly and organized person, I now start to seek out really clean environments, kind of open spaces. Things are nice and like filed and categorized correctly. But I think there is something to be said for constantly striving to keep our environments really nice and clean and not necessarily have them this cluttered most of the time, have to spend this huge chunk of time cleaning it and then enjoying a orderly desk for like a couple days and then it's messy again. As I became more orderly and more organized, I started to realize that I would generate these lists. I have like all these different paper piles of things that I either wanted to do, took notes on from like books or articles or videos, and it's just like scattered everywhere. The issue is that there are probably important things in that pile and I need to go through them at some point. There might be a bill in there that I'm not aware of. There might be a message that I needed to send to someone like 3 weeks ago. I'm sure there's like an endless list of things that I could probably be missing right now. And so that's one of the issues to having so much clutter right now. And even though I'm like starting to implement these systems and getting better about trying to have these habits and routines in place to not have that like lag behind on all of the things that I need to get done. So I want to bring myself back to this intention to keep things clean, keep things tidy, and incorporate these systems and habits that allow me to work through these different lists. This whole idea of concentrated chaos, I would concentrate all of my chaotic stuff, all of my notes, all of my papers, projects, all the stuff, and just like as few concentrated areas as possible. This whole idea of concentrated chaos really mostly comes from a snippet I took from the Getting Things Done system, I think. Basically, it's just inboxing. That is the whole intention here for this initiative. Like creating lots of space on my environments and creating these little inboxes of things, areas that I can put things and tasks that I can just kind of knock off the list. And setting something on my calendar or my daily or weekly schedule to actually go through these inboxes so that I make sure that I'm not missing important bills, I'm not forgetting to reach out to these people, I'm not missing this important task, and that's the intention, getting back to those three things. So the first thing that I like to do is to choose one specific area that I want to work on. Because if I think about trying to declutter the entire room or the entire house, that sets the bar a little bit too high for me, and I like to consolidate to the most simplest thing that I can focus on. So I'm going to start with the desk. I just want to have a completely clean environment, and then I'll come and tackle this, because this is like a little bit less urgent, even if there are possibly critical things hiding in that. By focusing on one specific area, this does a couple things. The first thing is that by tackling one small area very quickly, it's going to create a sense of accomplishment or a sense of momentum. Secondly, I will have a perfected, beautified space as early as possible. So rather than tackling like 7 different areas over the course of the hour, I'm just going to take like 10-15 minutes and this whole desk is going to be as clean as I can get it. So anything that does not belong here needs to go somewhere else. So the first step, one specific space, needs to be completely clean, completely empty, completely perfected for what I would normally want in my environment. So that's what I'm going to do first. So now we have the desk as cleaned off and as orderly as I can get it. This meets my like 80 to 90% good enough mark that I can now move on to the next thing and be happy with this. Another tool that I like to use in addition to the inboxing is a form of outboxing as well. I leave a little section that's kind of designated for things that need to leave the desk or the office space or whatever room I'm in, so that as I leave, I can grab a handful of stuff and take it with me to the next designated area. And this at least keeps the concentrated chaos of things that need to get done or handled in some way into a very specific area without interrupting my workflow at the time. And it allows me to just kind of progressively work at this process of keeping things orderly and putting things in their proper places and processing things throughout the day. So now that I have the desk done, now my intention is to work through the next major area of chaos. And I keep using chaos because I have adopted a way of thinking about clutter that has been so helpful ever since first hearing about it. So a while back, I started learning about Jordan Peterson. In one of his pieces of content, he gave this talk, and he talked about a children's book, basically a dragon living in a house, and the family doesn't necessarily believe the kid that's talking about, oh, there's this dragon under my bed and in the house and under the rugs and all the things. The moral of the story, as Jordan was sharing it, was that inside of our house, inside of our lives, there are a bunch of little things that take on a life of their own. And if you do not address them when they're a really small dragon and they become this big, massive dragon, that problem, that opportunity will take on a life of its own and usually cause some kind of unexpected havoc at the time you least expect it. So the goal then is to not let clutter, not let these little areas become so packed and dense with little baby dragons just causing all this little havoc. The sooner we can tackle all of that, the less likely we will deal with these really painful consequences later down the road when we are not prepared for it, when we're least expecting it. So, in an effort to combine this idea of slaying dragons when they're small before they get big, combined with inboxing, I started this phrase for myself called Draginboxing. And I created this little box here with a little dragon in it. So it's just a reminder that everything that needs addressed goes in the dragon box. And the act of Draginboxing is the act of going through the dragon box and inboxing all the dragons. So that's kind of how I've been approaching a lot of my clutter and a lot of my lists, is that instead of leaving all of the dragons everywhere, I'll just put them in their neat little dragon box. And so now, as I was cleaning off my desk, I put some tasks that now need addressed in here. Because it's very unlikely that if these are really important things to do and they're sitting on my desk, I am not going to process that. I'm not going to deal with it right then and there when I maybe only have 5 to 10 minutes today, or maybe I just need to clean off my desk and go straight to bed, or there's lots of reasons why I would not be able to address it then. So now everything that's important lives in the dragon box. So the next step is to put everything in this dragon box that should be in the dragon box that is just scattered everywhere and is not in a designated space. So again, I'm going from just one area to another, and I'm very isolated areas instead of the whole shelf or the whole room, and resetting that shelf back to its original intention, which is the house of the dragon box and a few other critical things that I use on a regular basis. A little bit more urgent things, so I try to keep them stuck together. So I've leashed the dragons in one specific thing, but it still goes in the dragon box. So another thing to note is that I was not very picky on what goes in the dragon box. If it just seemed overwhelming, I didn't want to actually look through it, I went straight in the dragon box, because the whole point is to consolidate everything into one area so that I can tackle it all in one motivated spree at once. So now that I have put everything in this nice dragon box, I put it back on the shelf. So now the shelf is reset. Anytime I have something that can address it now, it just goes in there. And then the goal is to, at the end of the day, at a specific time of the day or sometime throughout the week, to pull that box out, set it down, and just go through it and either do something with it, trash it, set a specific time that I'm going to work on it, and actually action it rather than just have it sit there for forever and ever. I'm going to go through the rest of my bookshelf, one shelf at a time, and tackle all of these specific areas. So by now, taking the time to orderize, make orderly my working space a little bit more, I now feel calmer and a little bit more energized and more readily available to tackle the most important things and not put them off as much anymore. Because now this isn't as overwhelming. Everything that I need to at least go through, I know there's lots I need to do that live just inside of this box. But now that it's not scattered across different categories, now it's oh, my only task is just to pull the dragon box off the shelf and work on it, rather than this dragon, that dragon, this dragon, that dragon, that dragon, and just all over the places. Now it's harder to avoid and easier to confront.
3 days later.
So one of the things that came up for me going through this process is I know I have watched like other YouTubers and other people that create videos online, and I like look at my setup and it's like it's so not designed well or doesn't look as aesthetically like pleasing or whatever. However, for me, I have to like constantly remind myself, and hopefully this lands with someone, that just because it doesn't look the part, it doesn't like match the aesthetic of someone else's. If it's something that works for you, then that's the thing that I want to, and I hope you continue to focus on. If this is, for me, something that helps me be more productive, helps me feel calmer, helps me to ease into my work a little bit easier, then that's the thing that really matters. If it's something that's visually stimulating or beautiful to me, that's the thing that matters, rather than like having it look like a certain aesthetic or whatever. So now the next most important step is the actual inboxing process. So right now I've consolidated everything that I needed to do for now in this one little box. This is what I call my dragon box, and I have many dragon boxes. This is just one of them. It's a little big right now, but the idea is to actually go from top to bottom in this dragon box and just make as much progress on anything that needs to be actioned, figure out what I can get rid of, etc. The goal is to actually have this dragon box not be so full. So this is just the accumulation of probably literally months of things, of just papers. That's at least one important area that I need to go through. The intention is to go from top to bottom and sort through everything that needs to be sorted. In a perfect world, by the time I'm done with this process, this box will be empty and I'll see the dragon at the very bottom. I know that realistically that's not always the case. I don't always have like 2 hours to go through something, just like today. I only have about 10 minutes. So my intention is just to go through as much of this as possible and or find the things that are most important and action those. Sometimes when I just have this much stuff, I'll just take the entire stack out so that I have a fresh dragon box, because I know there's a 90% chance that I'll just have to put some things back. So now I have a dragon box, aka an inbox. So inboxes are essentially just anything that is incoming information, incoming tasks that need to be addressed in some shape or form. So this is why we have email inboxes, that's why we have like to-do lists, that's why I have dragon boxes. A place to consolidate everything that needs to get done. So everything that I need to do is going to fit in one of 3 or 4 categories. 1, I can action them right now. 2, I can get rid of them because it took so long to get to them that they are no longer relevant, or it's just literal trash. 3, I need to schedule a time to actually do it if it's a bigger task. And in a perfect world, those are the 3 options. And that's part of the get things done system. And I secretly have a 4th one, which is put it back in the dragon box if I don't have the space to do it right now. So I'm just going to create those little piles. I'm going to like find the important ones that I can deal with right now. I'm going to toss all the trash and discard anything that doesn't need to exist, and just kind of go through that process. Then you have to like intuit kind of what you need to do. So you just have to like chip away at what you can. So that's what this process is. So these 2 would be a good example of things that just go back in the dragon box, because I'm not going to take the time to go through them right now. That will be a project for another day. I'm finding myself like already in the first 30 seconds of wanting to just organize everything instead of taking action on little things. So this is something that I'm like, I can just deal with this later. But the whole point is later is now. So I need to take the action to just chip away at a few of these things instead of just kind of sorting things back into the dragon box. So I'm actually going to go find the box of manuals that I have and put this in there. Still kind of categorizing some of this stuff. I'm looking for the things that are like super important. I'm going to put it with my today stuff because I know it's unlikely I'll get back to an inboxing session later today. As I'm making progress, it feels good to be making progress, and then at the same time it's also like there's still just so much. I have to remind myself that it's through these practices that it actually makes it easier for my future self. And as a result of doing this, like I'm going to feel good through the process even if I don't finish. Alright, so this is the end of my current Draginboxing session. I'm wrapping up now. Basically, 3-ish piles. This pile for me is things that I can't quite necessarily take quick action on in this moment. Since I have put in this work to categorize it, I'm using clips of some kind to bundle them together. So next time I come back to the unboxing, I now don't have to resort everything, and now I just have them in one area. But it's still going back in the Dragonbox so that I don't have it all over the place. Next pile are things that need to go in other lists or in other Dragonboxes. Basically some like actionable things that are maybe related to some book notes that I'm taking, so actually I'll set those aside now. I can action those real quick. So these are notes for a different book, so that's going to go in that Dragonbox, that inbox, which is just inside the book. These are notes that would be good to have in a digital format when I'm actually working in that space, rather than just trying to find them and totally forget about them existing in my Dragonbox or in physical form. These get clipped together and they're still going back in the Dragonbox, but now they're consolidated together. So that either maybe later today or the next time I do a Dragonboxing session, I now can just transfer all of these into the appropriate location. Next up is possibly urgent things. Those will go with my daily things. And the intention is either to action them today, or if I don't get to it today, I will put them back in the Dragonbox because I want to avoid my daily section just becoming another like dump section. This is medical related stuff, so I need to make sure that I'm putting this somewhere that I can find it, but it's not necessarily things I need to action right now. I just need to be able to access it later. So I'm going to find a spot for that right now. This is a really good practice of catching yourself and trying to interrupt patterns. So I had this insurance card thing, and I was like, I'll remember that it's health stuff later. And I know that if I go weeks or months without actually going through my stuff, I'm going to see insurance car and think it's insurance car and not think that it's actually health related stuff. So I'm taking the 30 seconds of discomfort to just fix it right now. That's the whole point of the unboxing thing, is like making progression, actually taking the actions necessary to get through these piles.
Smash the dragon, drive it right back into its den.
So that only took me like 20 seconds, and now that actually feels like a completed task. It's not another open loop of like something pending to do, and my future self will thank me. Or it'll forget that I even did this, and I will be thankful for my future self. So the goal is actually to have a lot of things kind of tucked away where I don't visually see them, but I just have some process that allows me to go through them. Specifically with Dragonboxing, I would love to have a dump section like that, where it's just in somewhere accessible, somewhere easy to get to, but not like visually stimulating or visually overwhelming. But like, it's really important for me to keep these things, at least one specific area, very visible as a constant reminder of there are things that need to be addressed. So that wraps up Dragonboxing for today, but this intention just helps me to keep the momentum moving forward so that I don't feel like as overwhelmed. And this process allows me to go through my list of ideas, my list of tasks, my list of like requests from others, and actually like set some time aside to intentionally go through them and work through and actually take action on those. In the beginning, it feels way overwhelming. It feels like I'm never going to get through this huge list of things. It's eventually going to get to the point where maybe I only have like a few things in my Dragonbox, and I can now just dedicate that 20-30 minutes to working through that task.
2 weeks later.
It's been a few weeks since I actually worked on the last segment, so now I actually have to go through and start cleaning up my desk again so that I can continue where I last left off. But this is a good example of life typically just brings messiness into our environments if we're not very proactive in cleaning and keeping it tidy. This Dragonboxing, this tidiness, this decluttering, trying to keep things nice and orderly is just an ongoing process, and it's something that even I have to make sure that I'm just revisiting over and over. At the end of the day, this is an iterative process. It's not a perfect solution, but it's enough to get me going. The more I do the process, the more I can modify it to fit my needs. However, I have to actually use the process in order to know if it does work. I can't just think it's a good system. It helps me to avoid feeling completely overwhelmed in my day, make humble progress on important areas of life, and work on the skill of using the very systems I created for myself. If this is something that resonates with you, I invite you to give it a try. Whether that's physical desk clutter or a digital inbox, take a look at an area of life that is overwhelming you and ask, how can I wrangle these overwhelming dragons, and what process will help me gradually address them, rather than only adding to my overwhelm? Let me know in the comments what that area is, or what system you use, or what questions you have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.